Hi, good afternoon. Welcome to Super Husky Gaming. My name is Wells, and today I've got a special little deck profile here for you for a Chaos Turbo deck that I entered into a tournament with a couple of weeks ago. And it won me a lot of individual rounds and individual duels, but it unfortunately could not win me a whole lot of matches. It proved really well in some places and really poor in others, and I'm gonna sort of break down where I kind of faltered, and we'll see what's what. But I really hope you guys enjoy the deck profile. And also another little side announcement. Just want to let you all know I'm back, baby. Joey Fila is back and at it again, and I'm gonna move into the deck profile. So without further ado, we're going to start off with the wimpiest of the monsters, but not the most least important, my Sinister Serpent. And then we've got Magician Faith and two Night Assailants for the discarding and Man-Eater bug effects. So one Spirit Reaper, freaking still love Spirit Reaper. This guy is amazing, being able to stop a lot of attacks, and getting the odd discard is pretty neat, and I like being able to get that. And also he's a dark. I like my darks. Speaking of darks, I got Sandgan. This three-eyed critter is really awesome. And I've got one Tsukuyomi to deal with some of my opponents, like warriors and stuff like that. And I've got two Gravekeeper Spies. The third is in the side deck because I really hate Noblemen of Crossout, and Noblemen of Crossout is the thing that hits these guys the worst. And I hate losing 3. I'd rather lose 2. But that does it for the wimpy monsters. Now we move on to Thunder Dragons. Ho! I mean, it's freaking Thunder Dragon. What else do you need more to say? The best discard card out there since sliced cheese. And speaking of cheese, we got DD Warrior Lady for the banishment utility. Break of the Magical Warrior, one Blade Knight. I like Blade Knight for the light utility, and for the fact that he becomes a 2000 beat stick, and being able to deal with my opponent's flip monsters, especially if I'm going up in the Chaos Mirror match. This card is really awesome, so I like it a lot for that. And speaking about the Chaos Mirror match, we've got Kaiku the Ghost Destroyer. Kaikunus is really awesome, and as a main deck card, much like for Blade Knight, I like being able to have some kind of powerhouse in the deck that allows me to put attack points on board without having to risk, having something on the field like Tribe Infecting Virus. Tribe Infecting Virus, really awesome. I'd rather have this guy on field as a body than having this and risk him getting destroyed. And speaking of destroying, we've got Zaborg the Thunder Monarch. The guy's freaking awesome. I like tribute summoning. He's a light, so if you gotta discard him, it's not that bad. And that pretty much does it for all the the regular monsters. Now we move on to the super special monsters, like my 2 Chaos Sorcerers and my 1 Blackluster Soldier, Envoy of the Beginning. This guy is so freaking awesome, and I love him. But that does it for the monsters. As you can see, it's a pretty hefty monster lineup, but there's a lot of utility, not a lot of attack points, and so that's why I love having stuff like the Blade Knight and the Kaiku there to help offset the fact that I don't have a lot of overall attack points from the rest of the monsters in the deck. I just have a lot of good effects, good utility, but if that utility's taken away, I don't have a lot of means to defend myself. But moving on to the spells, I've got the Trinity, my Ultimate Pot of Greed, my Graceful Charity, and my Delinquent Duo. The Trinity, I mean, it's the Trinity. Everybody's got to play it. Speaking of everybody playing it, Heavy Storm and Mystical Space Typhoon for the spell and trap destruction. Freaking love these. Snatch Steal for the Dignity Destruction, because this card has won me a million games and has lost me a million games. This card is responsible for a lot of ill-gotten victories, but it's also responsible for many ill-gotten defeats. So, it's a wonder draw card, and it's fantastic. Everybody should play it. Nobleman of Crossout for dealing with the, you know, the other Chaos decks, and if I get to use Tsukuyomi to put something face down so I can get rid of it, is a really nice little sneaky play to do. And speaking of sneaky, we got Card Destruction. I love opening up with this and being able to actually, like, you know, maybe I get lucky, I get a Thunder Dragon, I get a Pot of Greed, I get some way of setting up my hand, and I get to put stuff face down, and playing this, just messing with your opponent's plays and putting stuff in grave so you know what they've got, like, so you know what you're facing. That's what's awesome. That's what I love about this card. I sometimes like siding it, putting it in the side deck, but main decking it for right now, I love it a lot. And speaking of ridiculous main deck cards, yes, Monster Reincarnation. I'm sticking with Monster Reincarnation in this build because I like being able to get back stuff like Tribe Infected Virus, Chaos Sorcerer, BLS, especially if it's been discarded. My big thing is that being hit by like a first turn delinquent duo and they hit like one of your chaos monsters or something important, you know, I like being able to have at least the hope that I can get it back at some point, and this is the card that does it. So I like being able to do that. But that does it for the spells. Not a ton of spells, but you know, they get the job done, especially my Card Destruction and Monster Reincarnation. Those are probably the more unique like little picks to have in the deck. But now we're moving on to the traps, the important ones like Saenam Beria, Miraphos, and Ring of Destruction and Torrential Tribute. Kind of like the trinity of traps, really, because, you know, almost everybody plays like all three of these. Sometimes not Torrential. I sometimes take out Torrential depending on what I'm playing against. And then we have 2 Raigeki Breaks and 1 Phoenix Wing Wind Blast. I like being able to, I like the interchangeability of these 3 cards. I like the fact that I can take out 1, leave in 2, or take out all 3 if my opponent's playing something like Royal Decree and they're trying to shut down my traps. So being able to deal with my opponent's plays is really good, and these are really great interruption cards. And interruption indeed with my Dust Tornado. Like I was saying earlier, this deck kind of falters to enemy traps, so I need more spell and trap destruction, more than just MST, Heavy Storm, and Breaker. And I feel like this is the one extra card that kind of helps tip the scales just a little bit, and it helps me get ahead of my opponent in tempo, especially if I'm hitting a big trap like Mirror Force or Ring. And to top off the traps, I've got the 1, the 2, the 3 Jar of Greed. The greed doesn't stop. It wouldn't be a Chaos Turbo deck without, you know, Jar of Greed, and I like the defensive capability. I like being able to set this and use it as a little like sneaky trap, forcing out my opponent to use up resources just to get rid of it, only to find out that I'm getting to draw a card. And I also like Dust Tornado because it lets you set this, you know, at the end of your opponent's turn, and you get to, you know, draw off it, and, you know, being able to get that advantage is really neat. So that does it for the main deck. Pretty good trap lineup, not too many, so I'm able to interchange, and I'm able to work with those. But now moving on to the side deck, because I don't usually show off the side decks for these profiles, and I do apologize for that. But moving on, we've got the Jinzo. Freaking Jizno is great for dealing with, like, obviously any trap stun related deck, or those warrior decks that run like freaking 15 traps. The other 2 Kaikunis, the Ghost Destroyers, you know, for dealing with those chaos matchups. The Blade Knight for, again, those chaos matchups and those warrior matchups. The 3rd Gravekeeper Spy, depending on what I'm playing against. Maybe my opponent sides out, you know, their Nobleman or their Mind Control, and I'm able to put these in so I can play a little more defensively. I like being able to get a bit of that advantage. And with the 2nd Tsukuyomi, I'm able to do stuff like, you know, flipping these, getting more monsters on board, or, you know, effing with my opponent, and that's what I want to do. And speaking of effing with the opponent, friggin' Swords Revealing Light. I like swords, I like it well enough. I like being able to stop my opponent for a couple of turns, and depending on what they're playing, you know, buying yourself 3 turns is you know, can really make the difference. And I like just the fact that it forces your opponent to use resources to get rid of it, or they're just going to let it sit by and they're going to think, well, he's not going to do anything either, but at least it lets you build up. And I've got Nobleman of Crossout and Mind Control, again for those the chaos matchups, being able to mess with my opponent, especially if they've got Gravekeeper Spies. You're able to steal that, the opponent's spy, and use it for your own. I like being able to do that. I don't always get to do it. Usually I wind up grabbing a Sandgan or something that my opponent like baited me out with, you know what I mean? But that does it for the spells. And for the traps to finalize the deck, I've got my second Phoenix Wing Wind Blast, my 2 Trap Dust Shoots. I sometimes debate on putting at least one in the main deck, but I kind of like having both of them in the side so that, you know, because I'm never guaranteed to go first. And with my luck, I never draw Trap Dust Shoot in my opening hands. Sometimes I do, but most of the times I don't. I wind up drawing this in the late game when it has absolutely no utility to me and it winds up being a dead draw. So I like having it in the side deck for being able to mess with my opponent in later rounds. And speaking of messing with my opponent, I've got not 1, not 2, but 3 Solemn Judgments. I was main decking this. So when I was talking earlier about how I didn't perform too well at the tournament and how this game was winning me individual duels but not matches, this is what I'm talking about. So I was main decking Solemn Judgment, and it was working really well for a lot of individual duels, being able to stop my opponent's like big plays when they counted, but it cut my life points way too heavily. Losing life points so early in the game, or thinking that I'm going to stop my opponent from doing something really serious and it winds up biting me in the butt, you know. So I put these in the side deck in the hopes that maybe in the future I can just use this to reserve to mess with my opponent's Solemns or their really big plays. But I feel like once I learn how to master Solemns, I'll be able to win anything, because Solemn's such a good freaking counter trap. But you know, it's one of those glass cannon cards. Sometimes it's really good for you and sometimes it's not. But that does it for the entire deck profile. I really hope you guys enjoyed. I'm very much enjoying getting back into making these videos, and I hope that you guys are enjoying to see a resurgence in these videos. I also want to thank you all so much from the bottom of my heart for getting us to 30 freaking subscribers. There's 30 of you who actually care about my content enough to stay subscribed, so I really do appreciate it from the bottom of Joey Fila's fart. And you know, I bet on my lucky dollar that I'm going to get more in the future because of you know, just the work that me and Laz are both really putting in, and I hope you guys are noticing the effort that especially she's putting in. Oh my gosh, she's putting in way more freaking effort than me. I'm gonna tell you that from honestly, like she's teaching me how to edit so I can get off my ass and actually edit my own dang videos. But I hope you guys really enjoyed the profile, and I hope to see you again in more videos in the future. I hope you have a wonderful day. And from Joey Fila to you, it's time to duel! Bye-bye! I'm gonna go this way now, and now I'm over here. Goodbye!